mysterious bombing in Sudan. Residents of the Sudanese city of the Durman say foreign warplanes struck a military installation nearby. A local military official claims the army downed an Israeli drone. Israel has no response. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad makes a rare public appearance and claims recent setbacks are just part of normal warfare. Meanwhile, his ally, the Lebanese Hezbollah, is preparing a major offensive on the al-Nusra front on the Syrian-Lebanese border. And intense coalition negotiations in Jerusalem as the clock ticks towards the midnight deadline when the Israeli Prime Minister has to form his government.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the News Today. We begin tonight with a mysterious bombing in Sudan. Overnight, Arab media reported a weapons facility coming under missile attack. Later, the spokesman for the Sudanese armed forces claimed the military shot down an Israeli drone that infiltrated its airspace. Israel has not responded to that accusation, but what's behind all of it? We'll look closer, but first, Matthias Imbar and Ori Shapira have the story.
By now, it's a well-known routine. Aircraft strike warehouses or convoys of Iranian weapons in Sudan, and Khartoum blames Israel for the attack. And this might have been the case on the night between Tuesday and Wednesday. Although Sudan denies an organized raid took place in Khartoum, the country does say it downed an Israeli unmanned aircraft. This declaration does not seem to corroborate reports of witnesses who said they heard 3 explosions. Photos of these alleged explosions were put online a few hours later. This is not the first time such an operation has taken place in Sudanese airspace. In January and February 2009, Khartoum accused Israel of carrying out 2 secret operations. The first involved the bombing of a 17-truck convoy carrying Iranian weapons across Sudan and heading to Gaza Strip. Over 100 people were killed. 1 month later, a warship was destroyed in the Sudanese port. In October 2012, several weapon warehouses were targeted and wrecked. Israel has often accused Sudan of storing Iranian weapons, including short and middle-range missiles intended for Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Iran and Sudan still maintain controversial military links. Last year, Sudan welcomed a warship from the Islamic Republic with great ceremony.
Yes, and with me to understand a little bit more about this is Amir Oren, defense and government analyst for Arts Daily newspaper. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. So Israel, Sudan, I thought that Israel is just staying and watching what is happening all around and not saying anything. So how come?
Well, the other day, as you remember, Israel did come out with a denial when it was reported that it struck in Syria. Mm-hmm. But this time around, it kept its lips, very pursed. Yes. Let's believe, for once, the Sudanese eyewitnesses and try to see the rationale behind such an alleged attack. The 2 terminals, the Iranian and the Lebanese or the Hamas point of contact, the point of origin and the point of disembarkation, are very dangerous to hit. Israel doesn't want to wage an open war on Iran, when, for instance, the port of Bandar Abbas is the point of origin, and it doesn't want to start a new war with Hamas or Hezbollah. It does make sense to hit such a supply in the middle, in midpoint between Iran and the Mediterranean, and Sudan, the desert, the factories where it is perhaps assembled, perhaps disassembled from crates and then assembled again. This is an ideal place to hit.
So, you know, when we're seeing some kind of hittings in, or hits in the Syrian border, we understand that the missiles are coming to Hezbollah and targeting Israel. This supply or this base, the shipment was supposed to go to where? To Hamas, to Hezbollah, to who?
Well, you know, only a couple of weeks ago, we all followed the Iranian ships supposedly bringing weapons and supplies to the Houthis in Yemen. Once you are in that area of the Red Sea or the Horn of Africa, and you go up the Red Sea to Sudanese ports, perhaps then later to Sinai, or try to cross the Suez Canal, you can't really be sure who the end user is. Your best bet is to hit it anyway, because otherwise you might get the missiles once they explode in your area.
You know, I will take what you said, and this time that Israel kept its lips, let's say, closed and sealed. And this is what? This is Israel sending a sign: don't deal with us. We have ears and we have eyes everywhere. So this is just a warning. Next time, it won't be a warning.
Yes, this is very true. This is also a signal, but it also means that Israel is well aware of the Oriental or Middle Eastern habit of saving face. Israel doesn't want to come out and say to the Sudanese government, you can't control your own territory. Lo and behold, we found something right in your backyard. Israel keeps silent. It does what it does. And the Sudanese government wants to tell the world that it shot down a reconnaissance
So this
drone.
got to do with the good relationship that Israel has with South Sudan?
Yes, Israel has helped South Sudan get its independence. Earlier, Israel had some fair relations with Sudan itself. It has to do with various governments or rulers changing. And also, Sudan is obviously Egypt's neighbor. If Egypt is under the Muslim Brotherhood, Israel's relationship with it are not so good. Now, under General Sisi, President Sisi, Israel wants to coordinate its relations with Egypt and not get too much in the headlines for fear of alienating Cairo.
You know, how can this be, let's say, perceived in the other side, like on the Sudanese side? Because this is a little bit rude.
Yes, but you know, Sudan...
I don't know if to call it Israeli chutzpah.
It is Israeli chutzpah, but it started with Iranian chutzpah, using Sudanese airspace and Sudan's territory to try and ship explosives and missiles to Israel's enemies. So Sudan has become a battlefield for two sides who do not really see Sudan's best interests at heart, but are fighting on its territory. This is the reality of the Middle East.
This is the reality of the Middle East. Amir Oren, interesting, always interesting. Thank you very much
Lucy.
For this. And we're shifting now to Syria. A surprise appearance today from President Bashar al-Assad amid reports his military is losing the fight against a vast number of rebel groups. Speaking at a Damascus school, Assad emphasized that periodic setbacks don't mean the conflict is lost. But meanwhile, there are two key battles that may have a key role in his fate: in the regime's stronghold of Latakia and in the Kalamoun near the Lebanon border. We'll go in depth and explain, but first, let's take a look back.
نحن اليوم نخوض حربا وليس معركة، والحرب غير المعركة. الحرب هي مجموعة من المعارك.
قام طيران مروحي بإلقاء براميل متفجر على حي المشهد فوق مدرسة ابتدائية.
This is a regime that has lost all sense of any kind of responsibility to its own people.
Syria, in my opinion, is the biggest human tragedy since Second World War.
There must be a transition from the Assad regime towards a government that represents all of the people.
Yes, and with me right now is Professor Uzi Rabi, Director of the Moshe Dayan Center. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. And also Senior Middle East Analyst Ali Waqid. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. Gentlemen, I want to start with you. Just heard John Kerry saying that there should be a shifting in the Assad regime to make it a government or a regime that is representing all the people. And this is the same John Kerry that said that maybe the United States needs to, in one way or another, coordinate or cooperate with Assad in order to maintain his stability in the country. So explain to me, because I'm a little bit confused every single time when it got to do with the United States.
Well, Lucy, we should pay attention that the position of the United States from the very beginning, which is to get rid of Assad, is no more on the table. We spoke about, John Kerry spoke a couple of months ago that Assad should be part of the solution, and now he said that in the transition period, Assad should be part of the equation. So in both cases, the Americans understand that there can not be a solution without President Assad, in spite of the fact that in the last month the Syrian army is losing ground for the jihadist groups. We should pay attention also to where said Kerry his statement in Saudi Arabia, which means that apparently the Gulf countries understand that there cannot be a 180-degree change, which means that tomorrow morning Assad is no more there. The Saudis understand that Assad is there, that Assad will be there for a long time now. What is the package of offers that they might present to the different minorities in Syria that can convince Assad or the people around Assad? And there are already some talks about very indirect negotiations between some Arab countries, the United States, with some Alawite elements, some generals in the, or former generals in the Syrian army.
So if we're hearing this, and if the Arab countries understand that you cannot take Bashar al-Assad out of the game, and the United States understands this, so maybe Bashar al-Assad is right. This is just a setback. This is normal in a war.
Well, I think that basically there is no return to the status quo ante. So even if you have kind of a think or thought about solution, it has to be with the already existing cleavages and divisions. No back to one-time Syria, that's for sure. And even if we are talking about cantons or something like that, we should start thinking in the sense of Kurds, in the sense of Islamists, the Alawites, Druze, etc. But I think that there is a shift in Syria, and I would say I would take it even to the extreme, because I think that what's going on in Qalamun area and what's going on in the north seems that the rebels, generally explained that way, are getting the upper hand.
So this shift is coming from where? From the people themselves that maybe decided that enough is enough. If the Arab countries are not helping us, if the United States is not helping us, we're taking matters into our own hands.
I'm not sure that this is the people itself. I think that there is a lot of ammunition coming from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. They still really actually live with the notion of Bashar being toppled or getting rid of Bashar. I agree with Ali that this is not that easy, actually, a thing to be achieved. And while looking or listening to what John Kerry is saying, there is kind of an understanding that there should be kind of a formula by which to pacify things. Alas, I think that nobody has that kind of a formula. It depends to a large extent on Iran and Russia, maybe. And I think that we should look at the patterns. Maybe they should come up with something by which to temporarily pacify things. But as I said before, Syria is not a state. Syria is an arena of bloodshed. And I'm not sure that there is kind of a formula with which to pacify things. I think it's either Sunni or Shiites. It's Persian versus Arab. And Hezbollah had done a grave mistake while crossing the borders via Qusair and taking part in the massacre against Sunnis in Syria. And I think that he is going, I mean, in due time to pay the price together with Bashar.
Well, we will continue talking about this before. More from Mori Shapira on what Assad had to say and where Hezbollah fits in.
A day after rumors of his death swept through the social media, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad appeared in public and convinced the audience what Mark Twain once said, that the reports of his death have been greatly exaggerated.
Today waging a war, not a battle, and war is different than a battle. And when we are talking about a first war, like the one happening in Syria, across thousands of kilometers of borders, we talk not only about dozens or hundreds, but thousands of battles.
True, the Syrian president is alive and well, but it seems the country is slipping through his hands. Two major battles have intensified in recent days. One in the northern district of Latakia, a main stronghold for Assad and his allies, and another one in the Kalamun district, near the border with Lebanon. According to an El Manar TV report, the Shiite Hezbollah extremist group has already sent hundreds of combatants to fight the Al-Nusra Front insurgents alongside Assad's forces in the Kalamun area. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah addressed the issue Tuesday.
When this operation begins, it will announce itself by imposing itself on the media, and then everyone will know that this operation has started. But concerning its goals, limits, locations, and where it's heading, this will be left for the right time.
Meanwhile, in Geneva, the UN-backed talks on Syria are underway with zero expectations. The UN envoy for Syria said he is focusing on negotiating with political and military leaders on both sides to see if there is common ground, since a roadmap to end the violence in the country was declared in 2012. Now, 3 years later, a road for peace seems unclear and the Syrian map is more fragmented than ever.
I want to take this just from the point that we just mentioned just before the VTR that we just saw. You know, once upon a time there were boundaries or borders in the Middle East. Once upon a time there were leaders in the Middle East. It seems that it's the end of the era of leaders. It's Hassan Nasrallah once was maybe one of the prominent leaders of the Arab world. Now he's getting into the battle, like you said, between Sunni and Shiite. He is getting into the wrong places, and in this battle you cannot win.
I'm not sure that from his perspective he's getting into the wrong places, but for sure he is losing his place as a symbol, as a consensus for all Arabs, Sunnite and Shiite, secular and religious. Hezbollah and at his head Hassan Nasrallah are perceived more and more as a sectarian Shiite organization and not as a pan-Arab or pan-Islamic organization like the organization wanted to present itself. I was a student at Professor Rabi when we had a discussion whether Hezbollah is a Lebanese identified organization or part of the Shiite Iranian machine in the region. And if until like 2 years you could discuss the issue and focus maybe on his Lebanese and Arab identity, now it's almost a consensus that Hezbollah is part of Iran Shiite machine, as part of maybe not the expansion of Shiism in the world, but at the defense of the Shiite Iran interest in the region.
It's not only and just in a surprising way or not in a surprising way, this puts Israel also in, because maybe the one that united the pan-Arab, let's say, consensus, like you're saying, concerning Hezbollah was Israel. And now even in this he cannot, we are seeing even the reaction that is coming from Syria when Israel is reportedly attacking or not. They're not getting in there too much. They are not, because they understand that that they're losing the ground about.
I think so, and I think that in comparison to what the prestige and the legitimacy, and Nasrallah actually had enjoyed before 2006. In comparison to that, he lost almost everything: credibility and prestige, and he's been taken like a Trojan horse or kind of a proxy of Iran. But basically, you talked about the Pan-Arab Army. Yes. Well, it seems that Pan-Arab Army is being forged against Iran when it comes to Yemen. So to a large extent, Israel is out of the picture. And this is part of the new face of the Middle East. I'm not saying that everybody is becoming sort of an Israel lover. I think that there is a kind of a real problem there still. But basically, if you look at things, it is, as you said, no boundaries. We have sectarian fault lines that dictate the rhythm. And basically, I think that this is the trap Hassan Nasrallah was caught up in, and I don't think he's going to have sort of a rescue out of that.
You know, history repeats itself. History repeats itself because we saw the big leaders, the big, let's say, you know, yes, the big leaders in our world falling one after the other. And at the end of the day, when history repeats itself, maybe Bashar al-Assad is about to see the same end like he saw with other leaders.
I'm not sure
like
that
Gaddafi,
this is a question
like
of history
Mubarak.
repeating itself. This is a question more, Lucy, about the region trying to rebuild itself and its identity, or more precisely, its the multiplicity of its identities.
Does he have
over
any place in this building?
Well, Assad is
building
enjoying, Assad for the moment, he lasted more than Gaddafi, more than Mubarak, more than Ben Ali, because the fact that he knew to maneuver between the different identities, the different ethnicities and communities that are in Syria, which was not the case in Tunisia, which was not the case in Egypt.
Assad is
that's right. Assad is enjoying the divisions within the ethnic divisions within Syria. He is supported by most of the Christians, most of the Shiites, most of the Alawites, and a minority of Sunni. This is what is maintaining Assad in power. So the ethnic division in this case was a tool that helped Assad to keep his power.
So
now
in one way, I'm just trying to understand, like in one way you're saying that maybe the most problematic place in the Middle East is in one way or another the most stable one?
And I still believe that Assad will be part of the solution, and if it's not Assad himself as a man, Assad group, Assad Ba'ath Party, Assad ethnic group, the Alawite group. Otherwise, Syria will be what Professor Rabi is anticipating, that it will never become a state with one central power, one central regime. It will be divided into cantons. Now, I'm not sure that this new federation in Syria can succeed with this very deep hostility and hatred between the communities, a result of this 4 years of bloodshed.
Federation is the best case scenario. I think that what we're going to see here is more of the same. But basically, I'd like to just refer to your question, and I think that you are right saying that the leaders of the 20th century are not there anymore. The notion of the one and only is not valid anymore. I tend to actually characterize things in the demise of the one-man show. To a large extent, Gaddafi was Libya for us, and Kardakha gang or Assad family, Majmu'at Tikrit. We dealt with that while dealing with states. I think that the whole formula of political culture is being changed. Public at large are coming to the fore and becoming, for better for worse, part and parcel of the new political formula. In the medium and the long run, we're going to see a totally different composition. But basically, there is no one and only anymore. Even not Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Egypt. He has to carefully listen to what the public says, because everybody knows now nobody is immune. And basically, actually, people can gather in the squares, and in the end of the day, you can be toppled by people who were not taken or considered in the 20th century as kind of a viable player.
You know, because I'm asking myself, until when the people will continue seeing their brothers and sisters and children being slaughtered in Syria, and will, you know, say, okay, it's a maneuver, somebody's trying to keep the stability, and won't give him, let's say, give Bashar al-Assad a payback on what he is doing. But I want to take to take the point that you mentioned, and we started talking about Israel. Can Israel see this opportunity that is happening in the region when it's not when maybe it's becoming a consensus that it's not the problem anymore in the Middle East?
Israel is not the problem. But
can Israel see this?
I think that Israel should see it. I think that Israel should actually get back to its senses, in the sense of that the Middle East has changed so dramatically that everybody understands or realizes that the main problem lies in Syria, in Iraq, in the emergence of ISIS. We have a totally different ball game. maybe this is high opportunity for Israel and both Palestinians and Israelis to start thinking themselves bilaterally, because of what I'm saying now, that it is high time for getting at least a partial solution from which to get kind of a set of understandings. Because if not, there is also the danger of the Palestinians, the people, being swallowed up by the regional monster, and Israel could suffer from that, because what we're going to have is kind of a tough neighbors. So basically, I think that the whole regional kaleidoscope has been changing. I think that the one who is not reading or rereading the map well, the one who is not actually trying to internalize the changes, thereby adjusting himself, coming up with new recalculation, is going to lag behind, and Israel included.
Lucy, I think that Professor Rabi is absolutely right, but I want to add that Israel, for the moment, is misenjoying what is happening. Benjamin Netanyahu is using the situation in order to justify why we should not progress in any process, whether a regional process, with what he calls the allies of Israel in the region, the Gulf countries, and with the Palestinians. And the fact that Al-Nusra Front and Al-Qaeda at the borders of Israel, it is true that for the moment they are fighting Assad, but Assad won't be their exclusive enemy until long time. There will be a moment that they will try, for internal or for external reasons, to turn their weapons against Israel.
Exactly, but like more than that, it seems that Israel not only trying to see the opportunity, but actually trying to cause trouble or maybe get into a battle that it should not get into, like opening a war in a certain front.
Well, I don't see Israel for the moment opening a war. This is not in the interest of Israel. Other players are doing Israel a job for the moment, but I think that Israel should use that moment, should use that evolution in order to try to strengthen its position on the political level, to find allies, to do everything. Because I want to open parenthesis. I'm not sure that in 3 or 4 years the situation in Saudi Arabia will be the same. This wave of people that are going down to the streets, and we should just pay attention to the echoes that are coming from the royal family itself. The changes that King Salman made did not pass without any commentary from inside the family, and already intellectuals are talking about the need that the Saudi kingdom should be institutionalized and not only in the hand of a group that had the based on the system of the al-bay'ah, those who are alleging to the king. And Israel this is the moment to try to take a step in order to strengthen its moderate allies, or those with whom she had a common ground.
You know, just before the end of the week, Ali, you managed to calm me down that maybe we will have a quiet summer. Maybe. Who knows? Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with me in this part. We're going now for a small break, 2 minutes, and we will be back. Bombing in Sudan. Residents of the Sudanese city of the Durman say foreign warplanes struck a military installation nearby. A local military official claims the army downloaded an Israeli drone. Israel has no response. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad makes a rare public appearance and claims recent setbacks are just part of normal warfare. Meanwhile, his ally, the Lebanese Hezbollah, is preparing a major offensive on the al-Nusra front on the Syrian-Lebanese border. And intense coalition negotiations in Jerusalem as the clock ticks towards the midnight deadline when the Israeli Prime Minister has to form his government. Welcome back to the news today. It's now the very final stretch for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to form a coalition. He has until midnight to do so. And after this week's surprising departure of Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman and ultimatums from the right-wing Jewish Home Party, it hasn't been, let's say, easy. With me now from the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem is diplomatic correspondent Nelly Ochenberg. Good evening. Not easy for him at all. Let's even say that maybe we will see a surprise from Jewish Home Party.
Well, Lucy, not easy is maybe an understatement. It was a very, very hectic day, and it seems that it's going to stay that way until the very last minute. Bottom line is that Benjamin Netanyahu is likely to establish his narrow 61-member government today, of course. Naftali Bennett can be very satisfied with his accomplishment. The Likud party agreed to give the Justice Ministry to the Jewish Home Party, nominating Ayelet Shaked. Initially, the Likud wanted to limit her authority as Justice Minister, but as for now, it seems the limitations will be very limited themselves. And the Likud does not like this nomination for two main reasons. First of all, it means that both Shaked and Bennett will be a part of the cabinet, something Netanyahu is very not satisfied with. So we already start hearing talks about how will it be possible to exclude them from the table of decision makers. And the second reason is because Ayelet Shaked is known for her very controversial, blunt approach towards the High Court, and there's a fear that she will try to promote laws and moves aimed at limiting the power of the High Court, something that will, of course, not go by easily. But Bennett might face even bigger problems because the Likud, we hear them say that payback is on its way, and as you know, Lucy, payback is fill the blank. We hear that there is a possibility that Isaac Herzog, leader of the Zionist Union, will collaborate after the establishment of this government in a few weeks, maybe a few months, and will join Netanyahu's government, and then Bennett can find himself out of the picture. But until then, and until we'll have more updates from you from the negotiations in a more playful tone, let's watch the next report.
It's a textbook standoff. Who will be the first to blink? Who will give in? And the possibility of walking away is the worst option. What was supposed to be the most natural alliance has turned into a fight, releasing all demons from the past. At the core of the battle, the Justice Ministry and Member of Parliament Ayelet Shaked. At stake, Netanyahu's fourth government. After long hours of silence followed by long hours of negotiations, Netanyahu's Likud party reluctantly agreed to give in to Bennett's demand and give the Justice Ministry portfolio to Shaked. But the Likud is trying to limit the influence of the post, for example, to take away the power to elect the next Attorney General. But the more general fear within the Likud is that Shaked will go head-to-head with the Supreme Court, potentially pushing controversial reforms that will weaken its power and trigger chaos. But these are problems of the future. For now, by that, Netanyahu received the final piece he needed for his government puzzle. That hasn't prevented Likud officials from warning that the Jewish home's extortionist methods can, and likely will, backfire.
Welcome to the House of Fun. Britain will head to the polls tomorrow in a race too close to call, as it seems both Prime Minister David Cameron or Labour Party leader Ed Miliband will need to share power with small parties in order to form a coalition. Wow, it sounds so familiar. Here's more from I24 News Desk.
Over 40,000 polling stations will be open as residents throughout the United Kingdom cast their vote. Conservative leader David Cameron is campaigning for re-election for his second term as British Prime Minister. After 5 years of austerity and tensions with the coalition government, he is spending the last push of that campaign touring the west of Britain, from Cornwall to the northwest, in an attempt to win 23 marginal seats, which he believes if he wins would be enough to create a majority government in Parliament.
They want to hold the government to ransom, vote by vote, budget by budget, measure by measure, and everyone in this country would pay the bill for that in the form of higher taxes, higher interest rates, and fewer jobs. It's something we've got to stop, and we can if we get those 23 seats.
British Labour Party leader Ed Miliband hopes to return his party to power, but polls suggest his best chance of becoming Prime Minister rests on a power-sharing deal with the Scottish nationalists. On the last day of campaigning before Thursday's general election, Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, leader of the Liberal Democrats, warns that if Labour or the Conservatives govern with a minority, there could be another election by Christmas.
We want to create a messy, unstable minority government, on the one hand in the hands of Nigel Farage and the right wing, imposing ideological cuts way beyond what is necessary, or on the other hand, in the hands of Alex Salmond and borrowing pots and pots of money that we don't have.
This is expected to be the closest election in a generation, with no party expected to command a clear majority, with a hung parliament and a coalition government looking like the most likely outcome.
You want to break up the country.
And with me from sunny London is Jonathan Sashadoti. Good evening, good to have you.
Good to be with you.
So, Jonathan, well, you know, we're saying that the Israeli politics is interesting. It seems that it's not going to be easy at all for both candidates to form a government.
That's right, and where Israel's system is set up for this kind of coalition and more proportional representation, we don't have that here. We have a first-past-the-post system, and really the coalition that we just had now is somewhat unusual for British politics, but that looks like what we might be getting again after tomorrow's voting has finished, if the polls are to be believed.
So if we're looking at the polls, it doesn't seem like a clear cut for both of them. What are they preparing in the next 24 hours?
Well, both Labour and Conservative are insistent that they're still campaigning for a majority government, but it sounds more and more hollow every time they say it. 326 seats are needed for an outright majority, and neither party managed that in 2010. There's only one clear rule for forming a government in the event of a hung parliament, and that is quite a loose one, actually, that the politician who can tell the Queen that he has a workable majority in the House of Commons is the one the Queen will authorise to form a government. So both leaders, of course, will be hoping that if there is a hung parliament, they will be able to put together a coalition that is workable. But David Cameron, as the incumbent, will be able to stay in 10 Downing Street and have the first go at that. So it's all to play for, really, and both parties are still hoping that by some pure fluke, the polls will have been wrong and they will, in fact, get a majority so that they'll be able to return a proper majority government.
Jonathan, from here, we get the feeling that there is no, like, let's say, you know, campaigning on the streets. It doesn't feel like it's elections, and it's we're getting the wrong impression from Israel, because I don't feel it.
No, not at all. And there's been much criticism this time that the party leaders and politicians haven't really been meeting actual voters. It's been a very staged, managed campaign with press conferences and official appearances, photo opportunities, even Edward Miliband, the leader of the Labour Party, unveiling this giant limestone monolith with pledges literally carved into it in stone. But all these photo opportunities aside, it's true that there's been very little opportunity for real people and real voters to speak directly to the politicians and for there to be any kind of leeway in hearing what it is they're actually going to do. And consequently, the polls that we've seen from the start of the campaign through to now, with only 12 hours to go, show that there's been very little movement from any one party at all. The lines are wiggly, but basically staying in exactly the same place.
Yes, Jonathan Sashadoti, of course, tomorrow you will be live almost all day here with us on I24 News from London, of course, broadcasting and analyzing and reporting to us from London. Good to see you again, and good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
And we're staying with Britain and the elections, and with me right now is Dr. Alex Coleman, value creation expert at the Academic College of Tel Aviv. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, you know, the agenda, the main agenda in the Israeli elections were economy, were, you know, the cost of living. And is it like that in Britain?
Well, particularly when you have a tight election and when politically you don't have a war in the Falklands or whatever, then economics is everything. That was actually Netanyahu's wisdom to shift the focus from economics to Iran and things like that. So that was a very effective demagogic maneuver by Netanyahu, but I do not see anything like that in the UK. So in the UK, the economy is going to be the thing. So for that purpose, David Cameron today was he tweeted that the services index was rising, which means that you have more services activity, which is a nice thing. A small detail, construction and manufacturing are declining.
So what does it mean? Because at the end of the day, you know, what is important for each and every person all around the world is to earn a little bit more, is to buy a little bit more, is to have good life and good quality in life. So is it something that the people of Britain are getting, or they're seeing, again, like what we're seeing here, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer?
First of all, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. Actually, I've seen extremely poor people in England. I mean, I think more than I've seen anywhere else in Europe. But the thing is this, that when you talk about services, usually people make very little money in services. That you're talking about minimum wages, you're talking about the bottom of the pyramid. When you talk about construction or manufacturing, you talk more about people who design, who construct, who build furniture, things like that. And unfortunately, what we see is that services are going up. I mean, this is something that you see all over the world. Yeah. You see China basically eating up all the manufacturing. The UK has lost the automobile industry completely to India and China. And so David Cameron is trying to somehow save face and say services are rising. Services are rising?
Let's see if it will work out for you tomorrow. And we will invite you to see this. Thank you very much, Alex. Yes. A new development in the investigation of the Germanwings crash in March. The co-pilot that downed the plane, killing 150 people on board, had practiced the move in the past. Today's report from French investigators is likely to affect flight safety codes worldwide. Ayman Siksik has more.
It's the unsettling new finding in the Germanwings tragedy that has been unfolding like a suspense thriller. Investigators working on the case have concluded that the co-pilot suspected of deliberately crashing the craft in the Alps in March had practiced the maneuver in earlier flights. For reasons yet to be determined, he later restored the plane to the correct altitude. But on the day of the doomed flight, Andreas Lubitz locked the captain out of the cockpit, and this time he set out to complete his fatal mission.
The main question we will try to address, it is possible to have situations where a pilot with psychological troubles or deficiencies is on board an aircraft with passengers with the intent of destroying the aircraft and its occupants.
The report also details that Lubitz's Class 1 medical certificate allowing him to fly was not revalidated a year later by the Lufthansa Aeromedical Center due to depression.
This will lead us to examine in detail the system of medical licensing of the pilot and to understand all the environment around that and what are the difficulties to access and exchange those information.
Lubitz's schedule shows that on the 23rd of March 2015, the day before the crash, he made an internal flight from Düsseldorf to Berlin between 4 and 6 a.m., returning to Düsseldorf as a passenger for the last time.
The summit of the Gulf Cooperation Council is still underway in Riyadh. Already on Tuesday, the GCC announced it would host a meeting of Syrian opposition groups fighting to overthrow Assad. And tonight, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is set to arrive in Saudi Arabia. He says that to discuss the situation in Yemen and America's deep concern about the humanitarian situation unfolding there. And to understand a little bit more about this, with me from New York is Martin Hindmill, investigative reporter. Good evening.
Good day. How are you?
So, Martin, try to explain to me, because Saudi Arabia and the Arab countries want to speak about Syria and how to overthrow Assad, but the United States, no, wants to speak about Sudan. Can they really and talk about the humanitarian situation and ignore the humanitarian situation in Syria?
Basically, just before heading towards the Gulf, John Kerry made a statement, it's about Yemen, from Djibouti in Africa, saying that they're going to increase to about $70 million the aid to Yemen to help with the humanitarian crisis going on there. And the feeling here in the United States is the reason for that offer of aid is to try to bring some sort of intermittent ceasefire to cool things down. What John Kerry sees is negotiations with Iran, tensions with Iran escalating while they're trying to make some sort of nuclear deal, and the fighting in Yemen escalates that tension. That's their focus. They want Saudi Arabia to agree to some sort of ceasefire, cool it down, so they can make some progress with Iran concerning the nuclear issue. As far as Syria, I mean, for the Americans there, it's basically a dead end. If they help the opposition, the secular opposition, then they're also helping ISIS and Nusra. If they don't help them, they're helping Assad. It's a very, very complex situation. I think they see very little wiggle room there. They prefer to focus on Yemen.
Are they going to succeed in the talks with, what are they going to gain from these talks, Martin?
What the United States is hoping to gain right now is they look at all as just selective tactical gains, not some big strategic gain. They don't believe that's possible. So right now, what they're trying to do is get some quiet in Yemen, some calmness there. Saudi Arabia agreed to some sort of ceasefire. The Houthis, the pro-Shiite Houthis agreed to some limitation, and then trying to move on the Iranian deal.
Yeah, so Martin, basically you're saying more talkings. Good for them. Martin Himmel, thank you very, very much for this. And the White House yesterday, U.S. President Barack Obama met the head of the Iraqi Kurdistan, Masoud Barzani, on the campaign to fight the spread of the Islamic State in Iraq. Next week on Insight magazine, I-24 News will air an extended interview with Barzani. Here's a bit of what he had to say on the foreign fighters joining IS.
In Europe, in the United States, in South America, there is a great concern because some foreigners are joining ISIS. How do you see this phenomenon, sir?
For us also, it's a big question. It's expected in the Middle East areas because of the background, because of the failing governments in the area that are making people sympathize with the violent and with the extremists. But for us, this is also a big question of how the original European people have been converted and then brainwashed to come and cross the border areas and join these terror organizations. Most of them were killed during the operations. There are reports that they are original Europeans, not those who got citizenship. So for us, how they managed to do that and how they have been brainwashed is a big question as well.
Yes. 12 years have passed since Susan Bomber, a British national of Pakistani origin, blew himself up at the entrance of one of Tel Aviv's most well-known bars, Mike's Place. Cyril Amar and Shahar Pellet bring us the story of the evening that left a scar on the city.
It's a major landmark for the nightbirds of Tel Aviv, a cosmopolitan safe haven. Located in the promenade of Tel Aviv, Mike's Place attracts Jews, Christians and Muslims, Israelis, expats and tourists, all sharing their common passion for blues. But on April 29, 2003, it all changed when things took a tragic, horrific turn.
They're going to kill people. How can they do this?
Midnight, peak time at Mike's Place. A suicide bomber blew himself at the entrance of the crowded bar. A few days earlier, the terrorist and his accomplice, both British citizens of Pakistani origin, enter Israel through the Gaza Strip. 3 people were killed in the attack, including a 29-year-old French woman, Dominique Haas, who agreed at the last moment to replace one of the waitresses. The death toll could have been much higher if it wasn't for the awareness of Avi, the bouncer. He was the one who stopped the bomber from getting inside the pub.
It could have ended worse, but thank God it didn't.
12 years later, life goes on at Mike's Place, but the memories remain. Every year, the victims' families and friends reunite to hold a casual commemoration ceremony in the spirit of Mike's Place, on stage with a cold draft beer to the sound of folk music. Joshua Fowden was there on the night of the attack. Working as a cameraman for an American journalist, he was in Israel to cover the trial of the Fatah leader Marwan Barghouti. The report was cancelled and the two of them planned to go back to New York when the reality of the conflict resurfaced.
We decided to join forces. I had a lot of equipment because I had just finished my studies in Prague, and we decided to make a film about the pub.
The day after the attack, they decided to make a documentary about the Mike's Place phenomenon. In July, both journalists will publish a graphic novel about the Tel Aviv Blues pub. The book will tell the story of the staff and the clients of the pub before, during and after the attack.
Yes, far away from their shattered homeland, 150 Nepali students are currently attending Kinneret College in northern Israel as part of an agricultural studies program that will later implement in their home country. Shahal Peled met the students who are now trying to cope with the aftermath of last week's earthquake from afar.
The picturesque landscape of the Israeli Sea of Galilee is a sharp contradiction to the current situation in the homeland of the 150 Nepali students who work and study here at the Kinneret Academic College.
We have several students that lost everything. Actually, they don't have a place to return to.
Shinkar Korala has spent the last year in Israel. He was able to hear what had happened to his family only days after the devastating news broke.
I connect one friend and he told me all the houses are broken down and my house also broken down, and so people no have home and people already outside.
This morning we got the urgent announcement that one of our students, his mom is on our deathbed and he need to go to return back immediately to Nepal, so we arranged that.
The college, which hosts the students in a cross-border agriculture mentoring program, decided to initiate a large aid operation, now in its first stages, to raise donations for the entire Nepali nation.
When the press will lose interest and those who came for the first couple of months will leave the country, it will take the Nepali people years to rebuild themselves. So we are now engaging in collecting the necessary equipment, from food to tents, to rebuild an entire society.
A week after the earthquake shattered their country, the students participated in a Remembrance Day ceremony for their people. Now they are preparing to send back as much help as possible and hope to use the tools they acquired through their studies in Israel for a far greater use than they had expected.
When I go back for finish my agriculture long training, and I go back there and I support and new build my home.
In conjunction with the Jordan Valley Regional Council, they hope the campaign will raise the much-needed donations from the nearby villages where they work daily.
The fact that in the Jordan Valley there's a large group of students in the Kinneret College who study and work in agriculture here connected us very quickly to what had happened in Nepal, beyond the humane disaster we've all witnessed.
As an initial stream of donations begins to arrive, Shankar and his friends hope the local initiative will spark an ongoing mission from afar to help their devastated nation.
And now to sports. And with me right now is the host of I-24 News Sports Magazine,
Jonathan Regan.
Oh.
Yes, I'm here again.
How are you?
I'm very good. Yourself?
All good?
All good.
Especially after the Juventus versus Real Madrid game yesterday?
Yes, I'm so happy that the Champions League semifinals are here with two big matches. We'll start by talking about what happened last night. Juventus against Real Madrid. Big game. And if anyone thought Juventus would be the easier draw, then we got the expected answer, no-ho. Juventus is a very good team. They won the game 2-1. They could even added perhaps one more. Very good game from both teams, which means everything is open for the second leg. Real Madrid will qualify to the final if they win 1-0, but they have to score, they have to win, or else Juventus would go to the next stage. Ronaldo scored for Real Madrid. It was an equalizer, but then Carlos Tevez got the winning penalty in the second half. 2-1 for Juventus, meaning everything is open and everything is interesting ahead of the second leg. Two great teams.
Which means that it's leading us to tonight's game.
Yes, to tonight's game, the second one. There's just endless stories in this Barcelona against Bayern Munich. First, it's a rematch of the semi-final 2 years ago, which Bayern Munich won 7-0 in aggregate. Pep Guardiola returns to the Camp Nou. So many stories. This is a place where he excelled as a player and even more so as a manager, leading Barcelona to incredible success, building the tiki-taka system. Now he's in Munich. He will be facing his former superstar, Leo Messi. And then we have Messi and Neymar and Suarez, this trio, Bayern Munich, which we see here. On the other hand, they come with
Neymar, Messi. This is
and Robert Lewandowski with that scary mask.
What is this?
He's injured in the face, and he was supposed to be out for the season.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, but he said Phantom of the Opera maybe, but in a game like this, I will not miss it. And so yeah, he plays with a mask.
Good for him.
Very interesting things indeed ahead of this game.
But I believe that this mask he didn't put because he smashed his car.
No, but other people did. This segment is what I would say. If you work in insurance, don't watch this. It's the World Championship in smashing cars, and this is basically what happens. Cars jumping over other cars. And now I'm happy to say that no drivers were injured. I cannot understand how, but there were no injuries once they did this. Literally, cars jump tens of meters in the air. The aim is to make it to the other side. A few of them did. What? Zhut, basically. Yes. And they jump. Some of them make it to the other side. Most don't. And the cars are smashed. And they have a wonderful time.
I had a car like that should have been like zhut like that.
Join the competition next year.
Yeah, once. No, but I had it. I sold it. I don't know. No, actually, I didn't sell it.
It died. The car died.
No, it got burned.
I'm not going to ask how.
Don't ask.
Okay, burning cars, that's fine.
Jonathan Reagan. I'm a good driver.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, we're going out for a small break, 2 minutes. Don't ask yourself what happened to my car in the meantime. Really, don't ask yourself. 2 minutes and I'll be back.